number one priority of our guest today is to reduce violent crime related to gangs and narcotics in the city of Chicago. Our guest today has served over 35 years in the Chicago Police Department, earning his sergeant's stripes at age 28. Our guest today was promoted to lieutenant in 1985 as a result of having led a series of highly successful and highly publicized narcotics investigations that led to several convictions. In 1994, our guest today was promoted to commander of Area 5 on the Chicago's northwest side. 4 years later, he was named commander of the Narcotics and Gang Investigations Section. In February 2000, our guest today was promoted to Deputy Chief of the Organized Crime Division. The following year, he was promoted to the Chief of Detectives. In April of last year, he was named First Deputy Superintendent, overseeing the day-to-day operations of the Chicago Police Department. And in October 2003, Mayor Daley named him Superintendent of Police. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very honored to have at the City Club of Chicago a Marine, and now the Chicago Police Superintendent, Phil Cline. Superintendent.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jay. Thank you for the opportunity to come here today and address one of the most important challenges facing Chicago, and that's improving the quality of life in our neighborhoods by making Chicago's neighborhoods a safer place to live, work, and raise a family. Last fall, I was honored when Mayor Daley appointed me as the superintendent of the best police department in the nation. When I accepted this responsibility, I did so with the knowledge that I was filling some big shoes. Year after year, Superintendent Terry Hillard and the department which he led, of which I'm proud to have been a part of for the last 35 years, reduced the crime rate in Chicago neighborhoods every year. Terry Hillard deserves our thanks and gratitude, and today I want to express my appreciation to him for all he did on behalf of our city. But he would be the first one to acknowledge there is more to be done. Yes, violent crime last year dipped to a 19-year low. There are 1,000 fewer shootings than in 2002, but there are still too many guns on our streets. Last year, our homicides fell below 600 for the first time in 36 years, but we all agree that one homicide is one too many in our city. And yes, crime has continued to drop the first 2 months of this year, including murders and shootings, but we must do even better. That's why I became superintendent. I made several commitments that I believe will take the work of the Chicago Police Department to the next level and to keep Chicago at the forefront in the fight against crime. They are important for you and the people of Chicago to understand because I expect to be held accountable for them. First, I made a commitment to have a police department that protects every person in Chicago, regardless of race, gender, ethnic background, religious beliefs, sexual orientation, or age. I made a commitment to have a police department that works to prevent and fight crime where it occurs so that we are enhancing the quality of life in every neighborhood in Chicago. I want to make it clear that the number of murders in our city is way too many, and it's unacceptable to me. Lowering it and doing more to fight the gangs, guns, and drugs that are behind most of our violence remains my number one priority. We aren't doing the job unless each person, regardless of who they are or where they live or work, believes that we are on their side, fighting crime on their behalf. Next, I made a commitment to build a department that reflects the city it serves and has only the highest expectations when it comes to the conduct of each and every officer. And as I've said many times, there is no place in our department for police misconduct of any type. I made a commitment to hold the entire department, leadership, rank and file, to higher standards of accountability, and to take full advantage of all the technology available to us so that we could better protect every neighborhood in the city and target our resources to the areas where they're needed the most. I understand that our taxpayers expect their hard-earned dollars to be invested in programs that work on their behalf. And I made a commitment to deepen our partnership with communities across the city and more involve every Chicagoan in our ongoing fight against crime. These commitments were ambitious 6 months ago when I became superintendent, and they remain so today. Every day I wake up eager to bring our police department closer to achieving them. And with each passing day, I truly believe we are getting closer to our shared goal, making Chicago the safest big city in the nation. But to me, making Chicago the safest big city in America goes beyond the numbers. Unless the people of Chicago believe that we represent them and are fighting crime on their behalf, then the bonds of trust and cooperation that are essential to our work won't exist. That's why before I review the important steps we are taking to lower homicides even further and better fight gangs, guns, and drugs, I want to review the ways we are working to improve the relationship between our department and the people and the communities we serve. As I've said, I deeply support our community policing program and believe that each of us has a unique responsibility to be part of the solutions it offers. For example, those of you who are here today in the business community have an important role to play. You can support our efforts by increasing your investments in our neighborhoods. Allstate Insurance, for instance, has contributed more than $1.6 million to fund neighborhood-based crime prevention strategies. NBC5 has contributed free airtime for the broadcast of the city's television program on community policing. Approximately 3,000 local businesses act as safe havens, providing emergency assistance to residents, especially children and senior citizens who feel threatened or need emergency medical assistance. Together, these contributions have saved hundreds of lives and have protected our children's. Hundreds of companies across the city support these kinds of activities, but more of them need to step up to the plate. More businesses and foundations can also sponsor community development initiatives like the Local Initiative Support Corporation, a foundation-sponsored organization that is providing assistance for comprehensive development in 16 Chicago neighborhoods. These programs may include some risk, but the rewards to public safety are immeasurable. You can also support the city's efforts to put ex-offenders to work. This may seem unconventional, but it's a key part of our overall strategy to reduce crime and eliminate the conditions that breed crime. And as we look to the future, we will continue to ask our residents, our religious and community groups, and our political leaders to do even more through our community policing program to help prevent crime before it occurs. But as we ask the people of Chicago for their ongoing involvement, they need to know that we're their partners as well. We have worked hard to deliver information about crime to our residents at beat meetings, through the internet, and in the news media. But perhaps more importantly, we are working to remove the barriers that sometimes place the community and the police at odds with one another. 4 years ago, Superintendent Hillard initiated a series of forums where community leaders joined the police to engage in honest, pull-no-punches dialogue about the sometimes tense relationship between the police and minority communities. His goal was to bring a discussion about race relations that never ends. These forums have yielded tangible results, which I support, from improved courtesy and demeanor training for our officers to the development of a policy banning racial profiling by the Chicago Police Department. From these discussions, we have a far greater understanding of community expectations, and our communities hopefully understand us a little better also. As we move forward, we must make sure that these discussions take place in communities across the city so that everyone understands our commitment. That's why I've asked members of my command staff to organize an outreach strategy in the 5 patrol areas to assure that we're engaging each community in honest dialogues about strengthening our relationships. And if we are asking the community to join with us, then it needs to know we share some very legitimate concerns about how officers conduct themselves. Nothing erodes our relationship faster than allegations of misconduct or excessive force. When an officer steps over the edge, he or she becomes a detriment to the profession, to the department, this city, and all its residents. It's my commitment to aggressively go after officers who step beyond the law and seek maximum charges from prosecutors. We need to streamline our internal investigative process to bring answers more quickly to both the accusers and the accused. We need to do a better job identifying problem officers so that we can intervene with counseling, training, and discipline. We also need to use our groundbreaking technology to develop the nation's most innovative and efficient way to identify problem officers before they cause trouble on the street. And finally, we need to do a better job getting the message that we will not tolerate misconduct out to the residents of our city. For example, many people do not know that we fire 50 to 60 officers every year and discipline hundreds of others. As an officer who has spent 35 years on the job, I know no one wants to see bad officers off the street more than the honest, professional, and hardworking cops out there. The people of Chicago must also understand that I'm committed to building a diverse police department that more looks like the people it serves. The department is more diverse today than we have ever been in the past, and we have been more progressive than many of our big city counterparts. We have done this by actively recruiting minorities, advertising our entrance exams in Black and Hispanic owned media, and participating in job fairs in minority communities and on military bases throughout the Midwest. But progress is coming much too slowly. For example, despite our best efforts, fewer African Americans are accepting the challenge to become Chicago police officers. That must change. We need to bring more minority applicants into the fold at the entry level. That requires a more creative, year-round recruiting effort. It also requires that community leaders mobilize to urge young people to consider careers in law enforcement. In our efforts to achieve true diversity, there is no quick fix. It will require a sustained commitment from everyone in every community. Meanwhile, we are working to develop a diverse pool at every level within the department to shape and mentor tomorrow's leaders. That is being done through an intensive and challenging leadership development program. It's modeled after the FBI's Executive Institute. We put a select group of sergeants through a rigorous 6-week training regimen that equips them with the tools they need to succeed as the department's future leaders. We recently graduated our first class of 32 sergeants, and we have plans to continue the program. All our efforts to strengthen community relationships and achieve diversity within the ranks helps us deliver on our core mission, making the people and the neighborhoods of Chicago safer. As I've said many times, no challenge is greater than lowering the homicide rate and fighting the gangs, guns, and drugs, which are the basis of the majority of violent crime in our neighborhoods. Last year, gangs were responsible for half of our city's homicides. So the bottom line is that when we more effectively end their grasp on the streets and sidewalks, we get closer to lowering the number of homicides even further. Gangs in Chicago are entrenched, well-organized criminal organizations that are far more advanced and far more violent than anything we've seen before. They use guns and violence to protect drug turf so that they can sell more drugs, to buy more guns, to protect more turf. Just last night, we had a situation where a leader of the Milwaukee Kings was out on bond for murder, and he contracted to have guns brought up from the South, from the state of Tennessee. And when they were delivered to him, our gang intelligence unit found out about this, made the arrest. But here's an individual that should not have been out on bond to begin with. He was charged with murder, and we're asking the courts more and more to come up with source of bail funds. Where do these gang leaders that don't have jobs, that have no legitimate source of income, how can they come up with $100,000 cash in a Nike shoebox and get out on bond so they continue their crime? That's something that we got to stop. We're working to break this vicious cycle, but it requires all the resources that local, state, and federal agencies can bring to bear. Reducing gang violence in Chicago depends on precise coordination, seamless communication, and sound execution. In the last 10 months, we have introduced several new strategies targeted directly on preventing gangs from getting a foothold in our neighborhoods. They are designed to give us the flexibility to move resources to the right place at the right time based on solid and timely information. That's because we no longer simply react to crime. We must be able to anticipate crime in order to prevent it from happening. Every day, our new Deployment Operations Center, which we created last July, analyzes crime incidences in real time and makes deployment recommendations based on data, intelligence, and information from the community. It also serves as the central hub of information for the entire department. When we know that the offender in a gang-related shooting was driving a green Oldsmobile, it's incumbent on the Deployment Operations Center to get that information out to officers on the street as quickly as possible. The Targeted Response Unit, or TRU, which was created last summer, is composed of highly professional and proactive officers who are deployed to high crime areas to conduct aggressive, visible, and professional patrols, making traffic stops, street contacts, and going after guns, narcotics, and stolen vehicles. These proactive efforts free up district officers to answer calls for service. Enhanced Foot Patrol puts probationary police officers walking beats in high crime areas. These energetic new officers interact with the community and bolster our visibility in neighborhoods mostly in need of a heightened police presence. These officers are also deployed to hotspots to deter retaliatory shootings. Operation Disruption is where we put in place last summer is where we put cameras in areas where gang and drug violence is most likely to occur. These cameras send the message to dope dealers that the police and the community are watching. The beauty of Operation Disruption is that all the cameras are paid for using drug money seized from gangbangers, so they are the ones paying for us to keep an eye on them. Another initiative we started last summer was area narcotic enforcement teams and redeployed gang teams. They're working with the community and with narcotics and gangs to build cases against the criminal drug conspiracies that are the root cause of the violence that plagues too many of our neighborhoods. These efforts have dismantled 12 open-air drug markets and led to the arrest of 135 dealers in the last 6 months. Project Safe Neighborhoods is a cooperative effort between federal, state, and local law enforcement. This past summer, Project Safe Neighborhood expanded its focus beyond the west side to include the south side of Chicago as well. Under it, stiff federal prison time for felons who are in possession of firearms are solved. It also works with parolees on job training and education so that they don't reoffend. These efforts are just several of the ones I've talked about so far. Another important one, and one that got quite a bit of attention, was Operation Double Play. That's where our police officers pose as they arrest drug dealers in the morning, take their place, pose as drug dealers in the afternoon, and go after the customers who come into these communities to buy drugs. Because 70% of the customers coming into our communities don't live there, and a third of them are from the suburbs. Since last August, as part of Operation Double Play, we have arrested more than 3,700 drug dealers and customers, and we've seized more than 1,400 cars from potential drug customers. Over the last 4 months, there has been an additional 200 officers on the street every day. These are officers that usually work critical administrative duties, but now will work 1 week out of every 5 in uniform on the street, disrupting, disturbing, and dislocating the people who run open-air drug markets. It's that much of a problem in our city that we need to devote these extra officers to it. In addition, because guns are involved in more than 17,000 crimes in our city each year, and an entrenched part of our gang violence, we have continued our efforts to take guns out of the hands of criminals. Last year, we seized and destroyed more than 10,000 guns. But our efforts do not stop there. For years, Mayor Richard Daley has been working in Springfield for the passage of sensible, reasonable gun legislation that would make our streets and neighborhoods safer. I support his efforts. I appreciate there has already been some progress in Springfield this year, settling longer sentences for repeat gun offenders, and that has passed out of the state Senate and the House committees. That's good because it gets armed criminals off the streets for longer periods of time, and I encourage the legislature to pass this legislation. But I am also deeply concerned that little by little, the legislature is weakening our gun laws and making access to guns easier. Last week, both houses of the legislature passed a bill that lowers the age to 18 for which a gun can be bought. Here in Chicago, the impact that bill will have is to make it easier for gangs to find straw purchasers to buy assault weapons or other long guns, which will increase the number of guns on our streets. An 18-year-old will be able to buy assault weapons or other long guns in the suburbs and illegally bring them back into Chicago, where I believe they will be used to increase violence and kill people on our streets. We should be taking guns off the street, not increasing them. The legislature also passed two other bills that are troubling. One would exempt individuals from local gun ordinances, like Chicago's, if they used a handgun in self-defense, whether in the home or on the street. This bill is a step in the wrong direction. It would encourage not only handgun possession, but the use of handguns as well, regardless of local ordinances prohibiting the possession of handguns. The other bill would authorize retired police officers and military police officers to carry concealed handguns after only 10 years of service. Although this bill appears to support the police, I fear that it is just a first step by the gun lobby towards making Illinois a conceal and carry state. Not only police officers, but all residents of Chicago have much more to lose when we start going down the path of increasing the type of people who can carry concealed weapons. We need to pass reasonable gun laws, not weaken them. For our children, families, and the protection of our police officers, we need reasonable laws that limit the handgun sales to one per month, that close the gun show loophole, that bans assault weapons, that requires gun dealers to be licensed by the state, and to increase the penalties for felons possessing handguns. As important as it is to pass sensible gun laws, we must also work to assure that all of our gang fighting strategies work in harmony with one another. To coordinate our efforts, I've asked my 6 deputy chiefs in the patrol division to take on the role as field generals in our 6 patrol areas. They are in charge of marshaling the resources where the problems are occurring. If there is a rash of gang shootings in one end of the district, it will be the deputy chief's job to send in officers to saturate the area, conduct drug missions, or step up gang intelligence gathering. If resources weren't moved, those deputy chiefs are going to have to explain why. None of these strategies would be possible without quick and seamless access to crime data. Information technology is changing the way we fight crime. In Chicago, we have developed a template of how police departments will use the technology to bolster crime-fighting efforts. CLEAR, which stands for Citizen Law Enforcement Analysis and Reporting, is our comprehensive plan for implementing technology into everything we do. This system was conceived, designed, and built by Chicago police officers for Chicago police officers. The backbone of CLEAR is the data warehouse, which is composed of millions of arrest reports, criminal history information, statistical data on crime, and a mapping capability. Officers tap into the warehouse on a daily basis to check criminal backgrounds of wanted offenders, map crime in a district, print out mugshots and photos of distinctive scars and tattoos. Information that once took days or hours to retrieve now literally takes seconds. CLEAR promises to transform how we fight crime in Chicago. But simply having this technology is not enough. The officers need to embrace it. I am not satisfied that the department is maximizing this powerful tool to fight crime. We need to do more to get technology out of headquarters and into the hands of officers working the street. The police officers who have designed CLEAR have bent over backwards to make sure that the system is easy to use. And earlier this year, we announced that CLEAR will become the statewide information repository for 1,200 police departments. When iClear goes live later this year, every police officer in the state will have access to the same information. That will enable us to identify crime patterns more quickly, track potential terrorist activity, and solve crimes more efficiently. I am proud that the Chicago Police Department is the worldwide leader in using information technology to fight crime. I'm also very proud that CLEAR recently won the CIO Magazine's Enterprise Value Award. The award recognizes innovation in the information technology industry. The fact that we won the award was more gratifying, given that we beat out outstanding Fortune 500 companies such as Dell, Procter & Gamble, and Pfizer. Our technology is a true illustration of the innovation, ambition, and creativity that is thriving at the Chicago Police Department. But to make our city safer, we must understand that crime affects the people of our city in different ways. That's why we're committed to fight domestic violence against women, children, and the elderly whenever and wherever it occurs. While we've made real progress in the last few years using our technology to identify where domestic violence is most likely to occur, Every year, our officers intervene in over 60,000 domestic-related crime incidences. Of last year, 43 of them turned into homicides. Working with the Mayor's Office on Domestic Violence, we link over 2,000 victims each month to necessary victim support services. To better protect domestic partners, children, and the elderly, however, we must work even more strategically to quickly identify and intervene in domestic situations before they result in violence or death. We are also using our technology to more quickly identify patterns of sexual assault. For example, just this month, our computer database identified the pattern of a serial rapist. We located the suspect, got a positive DNA match, and he is now in jail. The power of technology, both computer and DNA, holds the promise to quickly and accurately identify sexual assault and other crime patterns so that all Chicagoans are safer on our streets and in our homes. I also want to assure you that we have no tolerance for hate crime in Chicago. I believe the vast majority of our people agree with that. We will continuously investigate vigorously all such crimes to ensure those who commit them are swiftly brought to justice in Chicago. Another dimension of the crime problem that demands our constant attention is school safety. Last year, we reorganized our school patrol to put police responsibility for school safety in the hands of each of our 25 district commanders rather than in a centralized unit. Our commanders are being held accountable for ensuring that students are safe in school and on the way to and from school, but they can't do it alone. Parents, teachers, neighbors, and our business leaders share the responsibility for making sure that our children can focus on learning rather than worrying about safety. We are also facing the continued threat of terrorism across our nation. To address this challenge in Chicago, we are working more closely than ever before with state and federal government on domestic security issues. We regularly meet with the FBI and our other law enforcement partners as part of the Joint Terrorism Task Force, where we share and analyze the latest intelligence information. We also use our powerful computer database to identify potential terrorist activity. Today, more than ever, we are well equipped to take on the challenges I have outlined for you today. I am looking forward to working with all of you to help us respond to these challenges. I have a sign in my office. It says, "Do it because you're the police." This statement embodies the expectations I have of every Chicago police officer. When we signed on for this job, we signed on for a lot of tough days, painful nights, bruises, bloody noses, and some broken bones. We knew we would probably attend dozens of honors funerals for fallen officers throughout our career. We knew that during every tour of duty, we would bear witness to the darkest side of human spirit. Yet we signed up anyway, because we also knew we would be the advocates for the victims of crime. We would save lives, and we would put criminals behind bars. As we sit here, thousands of brave men and women are placing themselves directly in harm's way to make our city safer. They're confiscating guns, they're investigating drug deals, they're intervening in domestic disputes, and they're safeguarding our children. They're running up dark stairways with no idea what awaits at the top. They're running down blind alleys not knowing who or what is around the corner. So when I see that sign in my office every morning, I'm reminded how extremely proud I am to lead an organization full of dedicated professionals whose great work is nothing short of heroic. These are the brave men and women of the Chicago Police Department who will make Chicago the safest big city in America. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your support of the Chicago Police Department.
We have time for some questions. If you want to line up behind the mic while you're doing that, obviously, from that brilliant speech. Clearly, Phil, you were in one of my classes at the Police Academy. There's no doubt about it. We weren't sure, but after that speech, I'm now taking full credit. So just state your name and address the superintendent.
The name is Michael Espy. It's in my father used to be a cop. But it's in reference to the heroin epidemic that's hitting the suburbs and the Calder counties, coming from places in the mountains. What can you do to help these people in these small cities and counties to deal with this? We have gangs coming in from California and also expansion of our own gangs into those areas.
Earlier this year, I met with Chief Bratton of LA and also with the FBI to discuss how, unfortunately, Chicago and LA are exporting our gangs to, there's now Chicago gangs in 28 other states. We're sharing our intelligence information with all these other states, with the FBI. As far as Chicago goes, as I mentioned during the speech, we take 200 officers a day that normally would be doing administrative functions, put them in uniform. We use our technology to pinpoint where are we receiving the most calls, where are these open air drug markets, and we plop those officers right there in a marked squad car, and we prevent the drug dealers from setting up shop, and we prevent the customers from coming in and making buys. We've also worked with the state police, watching the customers coming from the western suburbs on the expressways. We've set up different informational roadblocks, which the Supreme Court has let us do, to give information to the neighbors, to let us know. And I'll tell you, we get our biggest kudos from the neighbors when we set up our reverse stings, and they sit there and watch us arrest the customers as they come into the neighborhood and take their cars away from them. Because what's happening is these guys are coming in these neighborhoods, they're contributing to the violence that these gangs spew in these neighborhoods, and then they go back to their suburbs to use their drugs and sell additional drugs. So we're working very vigorously to try and prevent that.
In reference to intervention, we live in a latchkey sort of society. It's not like it was in the 50s and 60s. So parents are not there, and a lot of kids have no programs to go to. They have no athletic programs. Matter of fact, the city schools are cutting back on athletic programs. How can you, in reference to prevent this through intervention? What kind of concepts do you have there?
Well, that's what we're asking on businesses and community groups to provide alternatives for the kids. We're asking the park districts. Our community policing program works with all those entities to try and provide other things for the kids. But we need support from the community. Thank you.
Yes, sir. State your name.
I'm Michael Krause, the technology columnist for the Sun-Times. Great talk about technology and your use of it. Just curious, I noticed when you were heading out of the room, you were using a wireless, looked like a BlackBerry. Could you talk a little bit about how technology is helping keep you connected with your command, and how that's helping keep the city safer?
Much to the chagrin of some of my commanders who don't know what a BlackBerry is, we've recently purchased them with forfeiture funds, which is nice. I mean, this is something that's not coming out of our budget, but we recently bought BlackBerries for the top command staff because we, just like private industry, know the need to keep in constant communication. So at 2 o'clock in the morning when someone shot, instead of just me being woke up, the entire command staff is aware of it now. So,
Real good. Thank you, sir.
You thought this would be an easy crowd here.
Martin Janis, I heard your statement about 18-year-olds now being able to have guns through the legislature. What is the logic, apart from a very strong gun lobby that works all over the country, but what was the logic of giving, or the sense of giving 18-year-old kids guns? It's bad enough at 21 or whatever it was before. What is the, what kind of thinking is it that would make a legislator, they have children too, they have people on the streets, put that kind of legislation through in your thought process? And
I really don't understand it, and I think that it would be nice if community members would call up their legislatures that voted for it and say to them, why would you vote for something like that? We should be taking more guns off the street, not making it easier to put guns on the street.
thank you.
You didn't line up there. You don't have to wait, you know.
Superintendent,
State your name, sir.
I'm John Hammerschlag. I'm curious if you watch NYPD Blue, and if so, how accurate that is a portrayal of the police department.
Let me just tell you that if any of my detectives acted like Sipowicz, we wouldn't be prosecuting many cases over 26 in California. There's some procedures that are very well, but I think for dramatic purposes, Sipowicz gets away with a lot that we wouldn't tolerate from our detectives.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Lori Troyer from Oak Park, and I'm a nurse, and you spoke of your connection with the FBI with terrorism issues. How are you connected with medical personnel and medical units like hospitals when there might be a terrorism attack?
We have what's called a terrorist target index, and what it is we look at the facilities that could most be affected by a terrorist attack. And we have a group of officers that go around and meet with the heads of those organizations, and we look at how we can harden the target. So we've been doing that for probably the last 5 years or so. And what's also nice is that every one of our officers on the laptop that's in their squad car, if they arrive at a location, they can bring it up and it'll give them crucial information of what's being kept in there. Like we may have a school that has certain kinds of chemicals that are being kept in it for their laboratories. That's available to the officer, plus with the contact person of who they can talk to 24 hours a day on it. So it's really helped us. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nan Stoulet, and I just wanted to mention, in relation to that other gentleman's comment, that I've been very involved with Gallery 37, Maggie Daly's thing, and After School Matters, and there are so many programs in the grammar school and the high school where they're focusing on getting these kids involved in creativity instead of being on the street with drugs, etc.
Absolutely. We need more programs like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent Cline, I'm Alden Lowry with the Chicago Reporter. You mentioned it being unconventional in terms of working with ex-offenders. I wanted to have you talk a little bit more about why the police department is taking this step. Why do you think it's important to work a little more specifically with that population?
Well, because we know that if a ex-offender gets out of the penitentiary and there's no opportunity for that person to get a job, the likelihood of them going back to what got them in the penitentiary in the first place is going to happen. So we would rather not arrest the person and not have the crime occur than just be the ones that come after the fact and arrest people. So it's up to everybody to try and help these ex-offenders get jobs.
If I may, one more question. You also mentioned about the importance of kind of enhancing your relationship with minority communities. Could you talk a little bit more about how much of a help it is to have a better relationship with folks in Black and Latino neighborhoods in Chicago, and how much of a hindrance it is when you don't have that kind of relationship?
Well, I'll tell you, a perfect example is we had the murder of a young girl, Anna Mateo, last summer in the Pilsen community. And we were getting all kinds of information from members of the community about what gangs were involved, and that eventually led us to the right people that were charged with her murder. If you do not have that relationship, if people don't trust the police, then that information is never going to come forward to us. So we have to work with the community. We can't do it by ourselves.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you say that relationship is now?
We're probably about a 7.
Thank you.
Bernie, you don't have to go because you're an honoree. You could ask your question from there.
These open-air drug markets, are you seeing measurable success with that?
And we're seeing success in 2 ways. One is they're not being allowed to open up. And some of these gangs, now, if you want to sell drugs on the streets of Chicago, you have to belong to a street gang. If Bernie Judge and Phil Cline wanted to go out there and set up shop, it would only be a matter of hours before the gangs would come by and shoot at us to get us off that corner, because they control the certain neighborhoods where they sell the drugs. The important thing there is we want to disrupt that income from them, because what they're using that money for is like the gang leader I talked about that we arrested yesterday. His bond was $1 million, $100,000 cash. The sales of those drugs is what pays bond, pays their attorneys, allows them to buy more guns, allows them to buy more drugs and continue their business. So if we can disrupt that, like any other business, if McDonald's, the customers couldn't come in the front door because the police were blocking it, that McDonald's would eventually go out of business. That's what we're trying to do to these businesses. We're trying to make it so hard for them to operate that they're going to leave town. The other thing we're getting, and this is I'm getting feedback from the officers, plus I've gotten personal feedback, is people in that community have come up, knocked on the windows of the squad cars, offered the officers coffee, offered the officers something to eat. And I get phone calls all the time saying, please thank your officers, I can walk out in front of my house now. So there was a lot of communities where these open-air drug markets operate that these people were afraid to come out of their houses, so we owe that to them.
Well, how about a great round of applause?